How to put English on the basketball.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of With the English Podcast, episode 22, with myself as usual and Sam. And this week we are joined by Matt and Neil from C-Red UK. Gents, how are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Yep, right, thank you for giving up your time. How was the sleep from the last week?
Recovered over the weekend because we had a nice 9 p.m. tip. Well, nice for most UK fans, but not for me and Neil. So, yeah, we're done with all them 3 a.m. tips now. So that's good. Back to normality tonight with a midnight tip, seeing as the clocks have changed in Chicago.
I would have thought you'd be happier to stay on the West Coast, given how you guys fared out in the week, no?
Well, that's a fair point.
Yeah,
Certainly went more our way than we thought.
I think DeMar DeRozan would. He's just won the East Player of the Week for last week, so clearly owns the West.
You are fine in the West, as
Proves my point. Proves my point. West is weak.
Sam does say this a lot. The West is weak. He has a point to a degree, but yeah, wins against Kings, which is something the Lakers can't do. Utah, probably a team who don't care, but still you got to beat them. And it's never easy to go and win at Warriors. Was Steph playing that game, or was he injured?
No, he's playing.
He went out late in the fourth.
Yeah.
And you were there most of the game with the Clippers, from what I saw anyway.
Yeah, the best team in LA.
Yes.
Set myself up. To be honest, Sam mentions that a few times, and they are at the moment. I can't, the lead doesn't lie. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that Clippers game, we like you say, we were in it for most of it, and then Bulls have a habit of collapsing in the third. And I mean, Clippers were shocking in the first half, and I think that's what allowed us to take the lead the way we did. But yeah, we just couldn't hold it, and was it 10-point loss in the end, which we expected a loss, but yeah. So as long as you keep it below 10 or 10 or below, I think we're pretty happy with that.
Mm.
So is the third quarter thing a common theme for this year?
Yeah, very much so. As we've started to kind of coin it as the third quarter collapse, but it's improved a little bit lately. But certainly for the vast majority of this season, if we give a first half that's fairly impressive, whatever it is that Billy Donovan does or doesn't say to them during the halftime in the locker room, they come out flat, and they always, if they have a lead, they lose the lead. And if they're already behind or close, they end up creating a deficit that they have to dig their way back out of practically every game.
Well, I need to question that, because when we played you last, you beat us in the second half, but we did score the most points I think we scored all season in one quarter again in the first quarter. Completely opposite to last night for us, to be fair, but we scored like 40. I can't remember what it was now, 43, something like that, in the first quarter against you guys. So when we played you in January.
Yeah,
we like to set records.
We like to string along a bit.
you did, yeah. You definitely beat us in the third quarter, so maybe we were giving you a bit of hope to kind of carry on and maybe turn that around. But I saw a lot of open threes. The Clippers defensively that like they were poor, like you say, at points, because I saw you score a couple of open threes and that, and I think that's. Thing is, the Clippers are very offensive, aren't they? So there's always a chance they're going to come back with that firepower, isn't it, with what they've got? But
yeah,
very impressive. What do you think about tonight? Do you think you're going to get the win tonight?
Please do.
No.
Well, we always do a poll for every game in the group, kind of saying what people expect, whether it's going to be a win, a close win, a big loss, or a close loss. And myself and Matt, from looking at it today, we both put, I think you put a close loss as well, didn't you, Matt? I put a loss as well. So we're expecting a loss in tonight's game, purely on the back of how well Luka Doncic is playing at the moment. I mean, he's just been off the rails lately. So The only thing is, if we managed to slow him down, we did in the last game. I think we held him to, was it 12 points, something like that. Anyway, we held him to low points, second lowest of the season, and as a result of that, we took it close. But if we can do that again tonight, who knows?
But what would be interesting? What was the predictions for the games last week against the Kings Warriors?
We both went 1-3, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we had us to beat Jazz and lose the rest, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, still
be wrong.
Opportunity to win tonight, right?
Absolutely. There's always an opportunity to win. It's the NBA. It can go either way anyway. But,
I know the Bulls would be keen to do the Lakers a favour, so that would be in the back of their minds, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're always looking to help out our West Coast cousins. Yeah.
You could have at least beat the Clippers, though, but I guess beating the Clippers isn't for everybody.
We'll beat the Clippers for you. What is it? Thursday night?
Friday
night?
morning, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Have you got a bit of a home
Friday
stretch
morning,
now?
Yeah.
Or
We've got tonight's at home, then we're back on the road to Pacers, so it's not that far. And then I think something like 5 out of 6 of the next are at home, something like that.
Nice home stretch.
Yeah, but that doesn't bode well for Bulls because for some reason we just give up home advantage. It's just, that's part of the reason
before
why
we
I've let it
jumped
down
on,
as a loss.
obviously, I mentioned that it's felt like from a distance the Bulls have had like 3 different seasons in one.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true reflection?
Yeah, obviously started, what was it, 5-14, which was just shocking. We obviously didn't expect to do much better than last season, but to come out like that was just shocking. And then obviously we've got all the injuries. Zach LaVine, well, he was the main one. Obviously went down first, and it was as if they give the keys to Coby, and that was just it. It seemed to turn a corner, and I can't remember what I said to you last week, Neil, what the record was before. I think it was the Jazz game.
Mm-hmm.
It was something like 7 or 8 above 500 since start of December, which, considering the injuries we've been through, and obviously we lost Patrick Williams in the process, Zach LaVine, Torrey Craig's been in and out. It's just, I mean, we've actually, the last few episodes of our podcast, we've tried taking the positives out of this season, and I think a lot of Bulls fans have turned off after the start and said, like, that's it, I'm done. And there's still kind of running that negativity. Whereas we're trying to look at the positives now and the development of some of the younger players. And obviously all this is without Zach LaVine as well. So
yeah,
that's another positive.
I do think it's still exciting to watch, potential in young players and not just completely right off the season, but you're still sat in 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're pretty much going to secure the play, and I think below 10th is a bit of a distance. You saw the Heat do it last year. They went from the play-in to the Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, I'm not saying that you're going to do that, but the season isn't lost, and you've had some great wins along the way. That's what I mean about, the 3 seasons of 1. LaVine goes out injured early on. You then sort of picked up some really good form, and then obviously social media will drive the fact that Zach LaVine's the issue, and the Bulls need to get rid of him and whatnot. But then LaVine, no, correct me if I'm wrong, LaVine returned, and the form still sort of was thereabouts, maybe plateaued a little bit, but essentially the back half of the season, you've been a decent team to come up against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, back half of the season, like Matt says, we've been an above 500 team. But just the front half of the season, it crippled the team, really, in regards to their record. It crippled the team. It just gave us such an uphill struggle. But it's a real indication of what this Bulls team is, because like I was saying, with this whole collapse in the third quarter, and then they're fighting this uphill struggle in order to get the game back. And that's exactly how the entire season went as well. You know, we created this uphill struggle from the very, very start that we've been fighting the rest of the season through to try and get back above what we've now kind of started calling the elusive 500. We seem to get just right up to the cusp of getting to 500, and then we drop a couple of games again. And, you know, we just can't quite get over the hump. But the way they came out at the start of the season, a lot of that blame and, you know, proportionate blame to some regard was Zach LaVine came out really poor at the start of the season. Now, looking back on it, potentially it could have been because he was carrying this loose bone floating around in his foot. But he went out injured. Shortly after that, Vooch and DeMar were both injured. So at one point, we had all three of them out. And that was kind of the start or the kickstart of the young guys having to step up. And from there, Coby just took off and he's just gone on an ascension. But we were talking about this on our last podcast as well. It's not just Coby. The likes of Ayo Dosunmu is having a fantastic season as well, but that's kind of getting lost a little bit in the whole conversation about Coby White. But there are young players that are beginning to make an impact, and that's exciting for us going forward because it's given us a little bit of a look into what we're going to have moving forward beyond this season.
I think you're right. And one of the big talking points I want to talk with you guys today is Coby White. He's had a fantastic season. I think he's second favourite to win most improved player behind Sam's Tyrese Maxey. He's probably going to pip him to it, to be honest. But just looking at some splits from the last few seasons, I do remember Coby White having quite a decent rookie year.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of, I don't know the reason behind it, but it sort of dipped a little bit. Last year, he really dipped in more minutes, points, and, you know, other stats along the board. But this year, you know, his minutes have gone up from 23 to 37 basically. His points are up by 10. What do you think has been the reason behind his rise from last year to this year?
To be honest, it started last year. His rise. I mean, he was coming off the bench, but you were wanting him to come off the bench last year. I think the 2 years previous, he'd been suffering with a shoulder injury, and there'd been the whole COVID sort of thing, and it was just like after his rookie year, it was all over the place for him, and he kind of got a little bit of stability last year, obviously, which is a contract year for him as well. And he was probably our best. Well, he actually won our Player of the Year for last year on all the polls that we do and stuff like that. But Bulls fans still didn't see, or a lot of Bulls fans didn't still see. They were looking at the box score basically, and you know the box score lies a lot of the time. You know, I know there's another player coming up that we're going to talk about in a bit where the box score does him no justice whatsoever, and it kind of felt like that with Coby. And people say he still needs to improve defensively, but he has improved defensively, and you don't see it unless you watch the games. But then this year, it took a step that I don't think anybody really expected. And I mean, obviously, he's played the most minutes in the NBA as well, which kind of helps double your numbers, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it'd be quite interesting to get your point of view actually, because I've said a couple of times on the last couple of pods that obviously we see what he's doing from a Bulls point of view, and we see how good it is from a Bulls point of view. But to me, it feels like the rest of the NBA haven't really took that much notice because it just kind of blends in with what everybody else is doing, like Tyrese Maxey or obviously Alperen Sengun before he's just gone down with his latest injury.
If I'm being cynical, he deserves more airtime and hype around him, but I think there's always the element of it depends on how well the team's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We like, well, as much as I'm a bit biased, or you might think I'm being biased, but it's generally consensus that Philadelphia sports fans do know what they're on about, and they generally, that game he beat us when you started going on in December, and he went big against us. Everyone said pre-game, like, Coby White's doing really well this year. He's going to have a record night. A guard or a small forward always has a record night against us. Obviously, because we've got Embiid, it's very rare that a big man will get their points. And he looked really good. And that's when I kind of took notice. And I was like, this guy's really good. I think he was like, I don't know his exact, but he was quite high. It was like a 9 for 15 or something, sort of shooting night. And it's just like, when someone's that efficient against you, you think, is it the team defending him, or is it actually the player's actually really good? And I remember watching it live, and I was like, he's actually a really good player. Like, I just can't. And I remember my friend messaging me saying, yeah, like, he's more into college hoops as well, but he was just like, yeah, he was on a really bad team that failed at North Carolina, but actually he's a really good player. And it was just like, yeah, you can tell. And I think he deserves most improved player over Maxey. Maxey's had his accolades.
What?
Yeah, because he's played more games. I was going to ask if Tibbs is still coaching
And
you.
that isn't a swipe at Coby White. It's just this guy's such a homer that
No,
I'm really
yeah,
shocked
that's why I'm being real. And like I said, like, it's like I was going to interrupt you and say, is Tibbs still coaching if he's playing 40 odd minutes a night? But he's played more. For me, I'm going a bit shaky here and saying, you know, it's an individual award. And if you played more, and as much as I love Embiid as well, like, availability is the best ability as well. So if you've got a bit of ability and you're available, so like, I'd still say Max is a better player than White, but like, if he can't stay healthy, if White plays 15 more games, and actually over a season he's more contributing more to his team. So for me, and towards the NBA, so for me, he edges it because Maxi's been out for a couple of games now. Thankfully back tomorrow. But yeah, he's played more games, so he deserves it. Unless he gets an injury between now and then that sees him play less games. If he plays a dozen or 10 games more than Maxi, he deserves it.
Yeah, and I'd actually add something to that as well. I was now, don't ask me to quote numbers because I read it and I didn't soak it in, but I was looking at figures there maybe about 2 weeks ago, and it was the improvement in stats from Maxi compared to the improvement in stats for Coby. And Coby's were, quite a bit of a leap from his stats last year to his stats this year in comparison to Maxi, because Maxi was, it's not like he was a nobody last season, whereas Coby kind of was to a certain degree. So I just think that the leap that Coby has made from last year to this year should edge it for him. But the argument that you were making there earlier on, as unless the Bulls become an above 500 team by the end of the season, I don't think he gets it.
No, that's tough as well, because big market teams, like, I know he's up against another big market team in Maxi with us, with Philadelphia, but like, Chicago's still a big, it's part of that big 5-6. I know you guys, we spoke free that you're not into the other sports as much, but like, Chicago's got all five sports. Could have an across team as well, I don't know. But you've got the 5 major sports, right, of soccer, footy, hockey, and stuff like that, as well as basketball. So you've got a major sports market there, sports media. So you've got a lot of media members that will be voting on that sort of thing as well. And so if they're not going to win it, because you've got a lot of eligible voters in Chicago, it will be tough. But I think, we can safely say, with the MVP GOAT, Ben Simmons not playing for the rest of the season now, the Nets are done. So you guys have got that seed sorted. So I suppose it depends if Billy Donovan's going to go Tibbs style and max players out until the end of the season and try and catch up on that bad start, or if he goes, right, I'll settle for it and start resting players, and then does he start resting Coby, going, we're going to have this in-season tournament game coming up, so towards the end would he start doing that? And then that's when the awards are getting done, and recency bias always plays a part, doesn't it? Like,
it does.
Even though he's done so well, he doesn't play much the last couple of weeks of the season. When the awards get announced in April, is he going to miss out?
I can say, barring an injury, a genuine injury, Billy will play him. He will. I mean, he might not be Tibbs, but he's not far off. He does like to pick his very small rotations. A 9-man rotation would be quite extensive for Billy. It's normally around about a 7 or 8-man rotation, and he will max out at least 6 of those players for most of the time.
I mean, Coby White's young, so he'll have the legs for it.
Yeah, exactly. He's just wrecking the end part of his career. That's all.
But in all seriousness, I think the league will catch up with him. It all depends on what happens with the Bulls. I think as a franchise going forward in the next few years, when he plays in higher stake games, like for instance, it might be he has a massive game in the playing, and there's more national TV coverage and that sort of thing. But yeah, unfortunately, when you're not part of one of the top seeds, individual awards lean towards them. But I do agree that he has taken the bigger leap. Just looking at his splits, it's a much bigger leap. Maybe the all-star bearing has a factor on Maxi as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, the other thing as well, the biggest thing as well, we all can agree, no matter what, the best TV show on the planet is Inside the NBA. I don't know off the top of my head, because I watch it, how many times you guys have been on it. And that's the other problem as well, is if you haven't got Charles, Shaq or Kenny making a take on
or
it.
any media,
No,
not
yeah,
national
like,
media.
but TNT or Stephen A or JJ Redick, they're like, if one of those, I know Kendrick Perkins as well, but he says a lot of shit, so I think people just ignore him now. But like generally, Inside the NBA or First Take, if one of those shows aren't talking about your player, then there's not going to be that. But I've heard Stephen A talk about Coby White. I just haven't heard much on Inside the NBA, because I don't know how often. How many have you been on there recently? I don't remember seeing you on there.
We had a national game,
Like
about
as in
2
the
weeks
Thursday
ago?
ones. What on a Thursday?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I think so. Sounds about right. Round about
But
Thursday.
the
I
Tuesday
don't know how
one's
they
not the
work it
same,
out,
is it?
because I had this conversation with a Magic fan recently that they were having their first national TV game for like 7 years or something ridiculous at home. And being a follower of the Premier League, like the Sky Sports will always show every team. They sort of have to as a bit of a remit, and it'll be relegation battles and that sort of those sorts of games. But it seems to me that that's a bit different in the NBA, and it's basically the big market teams, regardless of what, being a Laker fan is obviously they're gonna be on TV a lot, but even when we're doing badly, we're still on TV, and there's teams that are playing well that are not on TV, and I think that's a bit unfair, but I guess
I think it was the Bucks game last Saturday that was our last sort of national game. That's why it was on at 9 o'clock, even though it was in Chicago.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And personally, I prefer we didn't go on the national TV, because we just always get embarrassed, and it's probably part of the reason why we don't have that many games, because it's just embarrassing to watch. I mean, obviously that Bucks game was quite controversial as well, so probably did do quite well for the viewings, but Bulls' performance says otherwise. So yeah.
Actually, Hubie Brown's a pretty legendary. If it was it Hubie Brown doing your game as well? That game, he's pretty funny with his comments. He was funny.
I'm not sure, because I just watched it on League Pass, so I get the Bulls broadcast
Yeah,
anyway. But
I can't do ESP. I do TNT or I do Sixers only.
I was about to say, like, even though a lot of our games are on national TV, I still prefer watching it on Spectrum Sportsnet and having the local network do it.
Yeah, same. NBC Sports Chicago. That's what we tend to watch most of the footage from through League Pass. Like,
because they're not biased. So
no, Stacey King is not biased at all.
You say that, but like we're NBC as well, and they Anna always speaks up the fellow NBC. I don't know if it's just part of the thing, but he never makes out that you've had an impartial, like that there's like a bias with you guys. They always have, like, because I suppose there must be a contractual agreement that you maybe meet up with the fellow announcers like a few hours before the games. You're part of the same firm, where it's like Bally Sports or whatever the other ones are at. But they always make out that the NBC community is quite good and they get loads of information. So like when we play you guys or fellow NBC based sports teams, you get quite a lot of information about like the last 5-6 games, who's in form at the moment. So you get quite a lot of information. So I enjoy playing like when we play you or the others that are on there. So you get to see so much facts. That's probably why I know a little bit more about Coby White than maybe or what you guys are doing because you're part of the NBC stuff, because they get loads of information, and like obviously it's some of the graphics and all that, like, isn't it? So it makes it a bit easier to follow.
Yeah.
So I find it
Yeah.
weird when I look at like the box score, and it's not how it is on NBC or the logos and stuff. It just throws me off. Glenn, you want to talk about your boy, don't you? That you still love, Alma Fudd.
Yes, I wanted to bring up Alex Caruso because I still miss Alex Caruso, and I wanted to know from a Bulls fan point of view, how much do you love Alex Caruso?
You can't have him back. Let's put
I
it
was
that way.
afraid you were going to say that. What about if we give you AD and D'Angelo Russell?
No, do you know we've enough injured players? Thanks. We don't need AD.
That is, we're talking about media-driven narratives. He has missed 3 or 4 games this year. I'll have you know.
He's doing better this year. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. He's dragged us up to 9th, so
yeah. No, but to get back to your AC question, he stepped into Chicago and became an instant fan favorite. I mean, there were definitely plenty of jokes and memes going around Bulls Nation. The famous Wolverine one where he's looking at the picture and you're looking at the picture upset, and it was someone superimposed LeBron's face and Alex Caruso in the picture frame. That was doing the rounds for a while, and definitely he's been embraced in a big way, and myself and Matt absolutely love his game.
Yeah, I mean, he was the player that I was alluding to before, where if you just look at the box scores, you just don't see his impact. And as Neil sort of rightly said at the start of the season, one of his sort of hot takes was going to be that he would improve offensively this season. And up until recently, his 3-point shot had definitely improved. It come out that he's been suffering with a thumb injury, which obviously has put him off his shot. And I mean, I don't think I've ever known a player that can put up no points but still be considered the best player in the game. And he did that a few times for us last season. And he's typical Chicago player. I think, it's what Chicago fans want to see, is somebody that basically puts it on the line for the jersey. And that's what he does. Like I often say, he's held together with duct tape now. And you can't help but love somebody like that. Do you know what I mean? It's what you want to see. And even when he's not playing, he's on the sideline and he's coaching. And I can't remember what game it was last week, but I said to Neil in our live thread, I was like, "Did you hear Caruso then?" Because you just hear his voice above everybody's. And he was on the bench at the time. Do you know what I mean? And he's shouting out defensive commands and positioning and stuff like that. So yeah, love him. Well, that's not to say that I didn't expect us to trade him at the deadline. I know Neil wanted to was saying that you got to keep him, but I was kind of saying you got to trade him. So it's obviously we never did, but yeah,
we were.
Yeah, they saw
him, so
there were a few rumours about him coming back to the Lakers, but I think that was just because of the state of our team at the time, and obviously we get linked with everyone. But I was getting a bit emotional there hearing you two fawn over him. But I do have a new lover in Austin Reeves, and I always say that Caruso walked so Reeves could run, but the dream is to have Reeves and Caruso on the same team.
I mean, it wasn't Caruso the first two-way player in the NBA or something like that as well when he was at Lakers?
Might have been the first Laker player.
Yeah, I just remember seeing something last week and it kind of goes into what I've been saying on the last few of our pods, is like, you don't know what you've got until you try it. Because obviously he was undrafted and he's come up through the G League, through the two-way system, and now he's like all NBA defense. You know what I mean? It's just, it kind of harks back to what we say about Billy and the fact that he sticks to this 6-man rotation, but we've got so many decent players at the back end of the bench and so much potential in our two-way players. And it's like Caruso's the prime example of give them a go. You know, and obviously Austin Reeves is now following that as well. And it's just...
Well, it appears that we like undrafted white boys in our latest setup. But I've said this on previous episodes, like just because you've got a high draft pick doesn't mean that they're going to reach their full potential and become a star. There are some hidden gems, you know, that of players that don't get drafted. I recently watched the G League documentary on Amazon, and you saw it in the All-Star weekend, which was an absolute shit show for for pretty much all of the weekend. But the G League Rising Stars team are the ones that put a show on and the ones that put the effort on, because they're the ones that are fighting their arse off to get in the league. And once they get in the league, they're going to fight their arse off to stay in the league because they know how quickly they could leave the league.
Yeah, totally. They're the ones with something on the line.
And that's
Exactly.
that's why I enjoyed the process. I say it in an American accent. That's why I enjoyed the process era, because, and that's probably gonna be my next point to you guys. Like, I was literally where you guys are right now. When I first got my massive fandom, my ex-girlfriend went to America and she brought me back a Sixers top, and I was like, try and get an Allen Iverson one, and she was like, I say, he left the team a couple of years ago, but see if you can find one. And she goes, I went into this store and they said to me, this is the best Sixers player right now. His name's Andre Iguodala. And I was like, all right, this is like 2008. And I was like, oh yeah, I saw they drafted him. I saw him done the dunk thing. He looks all right. I was like, okay. And it was obviously hard to get media stuff then. And then I really got into it. And then it was just a couple of years of just like playoffs, just missed out, playoffs, just missed out. And it was like, you know, and you had Andre Iguodala, who's obviously a great player, but then paid him max money, but he wasn't a max player. Obviously now Tobias Harris has got the ultimate shrine for that of best ever contract thanks to his dad. But like, we were stuck in mediocre. And then we just went stuff it, got Sam Hinkie in and went full rebuild, and it was great. Like I say, cheap tickets, $50 for courtside. It was great. Got to watch, talking of high draft picks, Jahlil Okafor, Chicago born, but so definitely not an NBA player, maybe in the 90s. And no Owens, Noel, Markel Fultz, and it all went wrong. But I enjoyed that because they worked hard and stuff. And then in the end, it's kind of planned out. If the NBA didn't step in, we probably would have been even better where we are now with our picks. Do you guys think, because you talked about the trade deadline, were you guys wanting to trade and rebuild, or did you want to try and see the season out and then try again in the summer, or do you think you need to do a full rebuild?
Those pieces that we could have moved and probably should have moved. Zach obviously was the main one, which would come to a point where we're just expecting him to go, and then obviously shuts himself down for the season, and that's the end of that one. There was sort of three names predominantly mentioned going into the deadline, was obviously DeMar DeRozan, Caruso, and Andre Drummond. Obviously, he was linked to go back to Sixers. And it kind of got to a point where we wanted to see something happen, because we haven't seen it happen for 3 years now. But you kind of fall in love with these players, and you kind of think, oh, do I actually want to see him leave? Like, DeMar DeRozan's probably the biggest one at the minute, where we're both sort of sitting on the fence with him, because the stuff he's doing is just incredible. You know, the records that he's setting throughout his whole time with Bulls has just been incredible to watch, and you can't help but want him to stay, basically, because you see what he's doing off the court as well, in terms of the mentorship with Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu, Dalen Terry, you know, all the young lads. But then you kind of look at the bigger picture and you look to the future and you think, well, do you really want a 35-year-old DeMar DeRozan on however many million to come back? And it's the same with Caruso. He's on a very team-friendly deal at the minute, at 9 million or whatever it is he's on. He's going to surely want more than that at the end of next year when his contract expires. So it's kind of like, do we move him while he's still got value and his body still works before he wrecks himself? And then same as Drummond, you know, Drummond's an expiring now, and it's like, do you get a couple of second round picks for him or a first round pick, whatever the deal was going to be. But then I just don't trust AK in the draft. So getting draft picks for me is just, it doesn't really work with this Bulls team. You just kind of go back to square one then, and it's like that's why we're stuck in mediocrity, because we're not doing anything. And to improve, you've got to maybe move some of your better players.
I did hear it was a first round pick, by the way, for Drummond, and that's why we pulled out, because we were desperate with MB going down. So your GM
Well,
was
yeah, to see the thing for us is, apart from Vooch and Drummond, we've got nobody else. They're our two biggest players, and what's Drummond is 6'10", I think. You know, and or Vooch is 6'10", and the other one's 6'11", whatever it is. But we saw it when Vooch went down injured. Billy went to a 6'5" end of bench power forward again. You know, so if we'd have lost Drummond at that point, it was like, where do we go for the rest of the season? And
Yeah,
obviously, AK comes out, and the new buzzword for Bulls fans is competitive, because that's apparently what we are at the minute. And the way Bulls are playing, it's, we are competitive with the best clutch team in the NBA at the minute. So it's, were they right to keep them? Just don't know. Just really don't know anything with this Bulls team.
The
It's
fine
just,
balance, isn't it?
yeah.
It's a fine balance, and it's almost, you can go either way, but you know, if you do badly from whatever decision you make, then you know the vultures will be out. But if you do well, then the plaudits will come out. So I think it's just a fine balance, and roster construction is probably one of the hardest things to do in the league. And I guess that's what makes the league a bit exciting, that it's not just the same team over, apart from obviously when there's dynasties. There's sort of a turnover of teams doing well, but sometimes it doesn't last long. You look at Toronto, won the championship, and you know it's been 3 full since. It's hard to sustain. It's hard to get the success, but it's hard to sustain the success.
Yeah, certainly. And the thing that Bulls Nation and Bulls fans have been crying out for at this stage, and certainly was at the trade deadline, is just some sort of change, some sort of something. And the fact that it was the third trade deadline in a row where we anticipated moves and got nothing, it's really frustrated a lot of fans. But then at the same time, we've actually been playing quite well. So like you say, it is that fine line balance in getting it right and keeping people happy. And it's not easy to get the two together, because, you know, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I think when you had that bad start to the season, I kept saying to Sam, like, the Bulls need to rebuild. The Bulls need to rebuild. Like, they're not playing well. And then Zach goes out, and then, like I say, you pick up, and it's like, well, what do we do now? Because
I think
we're actually not a bad
that's the
team.
thing, isn't it? Like, if the trade deadline was a month earlier, you might have done it. And I was all up for the rebuild, because I was like, that's one less competitor in the East, and I really want Drummond back. So I was fully that. But it must be. I have to have a little slide dig here, but it must be tough being a Bulls GM after you know, poor old Jerry's wife getting having to put up with it. If that was Philadelphia, I'm telling you now, that was Philadelphia, it'd be still in the news right now, because we get such a bad rep because of throwing snowballs at Santa and when the Eagles fans in 1960 and no one actually knows the story. So yeah, but no,
well, you actually picked up a bit of collateral when it actually happened, didn't you, off Stacey King? He called out, was it Sixers, and I can't remember the other team he called out. He said, you know, we're not them. It shouldn't be happening. And it's like,
yeah, we are the Boo Birds. Like, it is, but that's why I love Philly though. I think, like you guys, like Glenn's the odd one out here, because we support teams of hardworking cities. And like, my family originally come from Southampton, you know, Ireland, Hull. Glenn's from Basingstoke. I don't really know how to judge Basingstoke, but like Docker City, Ireland had its Dockers as well. Hull's obviously.
Damn, you live in Winchester.
I live in Winchester now, which is a nice part of the world, but I don't own a house here. I'd like to add. I wish I did. But almost, yeah. So anyway, we won't go on to my that I live in a nice part of the country. But that always gets voted as the most one of the best places to live, but I've never been asked a survey on it, so I don't know how that works in all my years that I've lived here. But anyway, yeah, like the hard-working city, and I think that's the thing. Like with the ball, like you said earlier, like I think you said it, Matt. Like you want to see that player in the jersey. We talk about Caruso that gives the effort and does all of that stuff. Like like I say, keeping his body intact, and I think that's because he's going to dive for the balls. He's going to, fall into the ground. And I've seen it as well. And that's why I think it's a real tough balance. I think if it was a month earlier, you probably would have done the rebuild. But that form you've been on is probably what made it tougher. And then you were able to be more demanding, because I think we would have definitely traded Drummond for second round picks, and maybe like a Paul Reed or something like that to you. But when apparently you wanted a first, and then we were like, no, we can't do a first, even though we got a first to try and get another player. But yeah, and for us that's now backfired because we're really struggling. So we maybe should have pulled that trigger on that, and because we could be playing you in the play-in if we. So it could be a Bulls Sixers. It's very likely. I mean, last night's win might have helped us a tad bit, but there could be a real possibility, and that'd be nothing.
It's all about the playing.
Well, it could be, but nothing worse if Drummond gets player of the match and we'd lose and playing game, like we could have got him if we just gave up a first round pick. But yeah,
it's all about the playing in the in-season tournament. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's the criteria that you go through through the NBA with, isn't it? You want the in-season tournament championship, and you want to be in the play-ins. That's what everyone strives for.
Well, how many in-season tournaments has Michael Jordan won?
Oh no. Yeah. We were getting along so well.
I know. He's so bad at these hot takes. You may have called him Glenn Smith Vardy the way he is.
I'm not that bad. We've kind of done this agenda back to front, but another reason why I wanted to get you boys on was I wanted to know, and I'm sure Sam wants to know, when and how did C-Red UK start?
Well, I'm going to let Matt answer this because this was Matt's brainchild. So I'll let him talk all about it.
Yeah, I mean, it started back in April 21. It's nearly 3 years ago now. Basically, I'd just changed jobs, so I was available to watch more live games, and I was never that big on the socials because they do my head in, especially Twitter. And
doesn't bode well when you need social media.
Yeah, I've learned to tolerate it. But yeah, so like I just thought I wanted more UK fans to talk to, so I thought, well, how do I do it and stuff like that, and seeing all the different Facebook groups, and that's the route I decided to take, was set up a private. Well, originally it was called UK Chicago Bulls Fans, I think, and it was just basically get as many UK fans into one place as I could, and it just sort of spiraled from there. We eventually decided to move on to Twitter, which ruffled a few feathers within the UK community. Led to a name change, obviously, to the C-Red UK, which is coming up to 2 years now. I think we've been called that.
What happened there then?
What, going on to Twitter?
Yeah, what feathers were ruffled?
Off podcast, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's all been sorted now in certain aspects anyway. And obviously, basically, you got Jimmy at UK Chicago Bulls. Obviously, we come on as UK Chicago Bulls fans. There was a bit of, obviously, Jimmy had his following, and although Jimmy accepted the fact we were there was certain followers of his that didn't, and it led to a lot of arguing and stuff like that. And then we changed, and we sort of changed how we were doing things as well, because I wanted to set up a UK community rather than a UK Twitter account, if that makes sense. Not to be disrespectful to anybody.
My argument to that sort of dispute that's gone on, strength in numbers, from my point of view, the more regardless of names and the rest of it, the more UK fans we can get involved in talking, the better. Although I will say that Sam knows there's obviously another podcast with the same name as us, and the day I found that out, I was very distraught because I was quite proud of the name that we'd come up with, and I think they definitely copied it. But anyway, sorry,
Not
continue.
bitter.
No,
Yeah,
not
I mean,
bitter.
like I say, the problem wasn't really with Jimmy, or Jimmy didn't have a problem with us, should I say. It was other people who were followers of Jimmy and kind of thought we were maybe coming in and gun things about the wrong way, maybe, I don't know. But we just kept on doing what we were doing, and the bigger we were getting kind of led to a bit more animosity in a way. And it did come to blows quite bad on Twitter with Jimmy. That was Neil's fault, but that's a different story. But again, that's all got
Water under the
smoothed
bridge.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, we've since
we actually met
Jimmy.
up in Paris. Yeah. So, and the progression of Seared UK and obviously what Jimmy was doing as well. We joined each other's podcasts. The way social media works, obviously Facebook's a bit of a dying thing. You just put pictures of your kids on there and send them to your family now. So the Facebook group kind of died off, which is why we started the Discord, because, like I say, I hate Twitter. I think it leads to too many arguments, too many trolls, all that sort of stuff. And I wanted the UK fans to be in one place, which is what we set the Discord up for. It's not really kicked off as the way we wanted it to, but because that's where we do our live threads and stuff like that. And just basically, I find with Twitter, it's kind of like you're all shouting about the same thing, but you're not being heard. It's like, so, it's obviously we're on Twitter loads, which everybody is these days. But the idea of Seared UK, like I said, going back to the original point, was to try and create the UK community. With it's kind of led to us to being the sort of the voice of it in a way, or the voice of Seared UK, not the Bulls community. But yeah, we've kind of got links direct to Bulls set up. Adam went out there to Chicago the other week, and he got a behind the scenes tour, which we sorted out for him. Obviously,
You've
the
had
podcast.
guests appeared from the Bulls part of the franchise, I believe, as in like
Yeah,
employees there and people associated with the local networks and stuff. Like, you guys are killing it, really.
yeah. I mean, the podcast itself wasn't actually our idea, because we both said we wouldn't have the time and the know-how to do it. We started it thinking that this other guy was going to be joining us, and then we didn't. And it was like, right, what do we do? And we did have another co-host, and then he's since left because, whatever reason. Like I say, a few people have been upset by the way we've done things, shall we say? But yeah, obviously people come and go. Yeah, so then obviously the podcast, it kind of took off, and yeah, we've had like beat writers on, Casey Johnson, for example, obviously the go beat writing in Chicago. Dan Moriarty, former vice president of marketing for Bulls, who's actually English as well, so that helped. And a lot of the other big podcasters as well, like the CHGO Bulls and stuff like that. So it's been,
And you're part of a network now?
yeah, that come about from another English podcast. Actually, I'd seen that they were part of it, and I just reached out, and yeah, they took us on, and that's helped us in the way we do things. Not particularly helped us grow as such, but it's helped us do things and make it look a bit more professional, shall we say?
Yeah.
For want of a better word. But that's Neil's
Slick.
bag. Yeah,
Slick. I like the term slick rather than professional.
It's definitely
So, yeah.
definitely good. It is slick. I'll give you that. It's very. I do like your setup.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
I'm always sending Sam screenshots of
Yeah,
your
he's like,
stuff
I
saying,
need to
"We
do
should be
this.
doing
Like, I'm
this.
as
We
good
should
as
be
this
doing that."
software you have. Yeah, it's great. So you set a high standard for me to try and reach with limited IT. So I appreciate that.
Well, I knew nothing when I first started doing it. It was real trial and error stuff. So hit me up at any point and I'll help you out any way I
Well,
can.
we started off knowing nothing, and we still know nothing.
Yeah.
If you got any advice for small timers like us, then we're happy to.
We will reach out for sure. But I think, touching on your point earlier, you've done a great job. You've got a big following. Obviously I joked pre-call about Jimmy being a Pompey fan and us being Saints. So I've interacted with him. I saw that Glenn, but I don't know if it was a really into the social media on the NBA UK community back then. But I remember seeing it all going, and I had the same view as you. And I was like, you can have two. I think what you guys have done, like Bulls are definitely one of the most supported UK teams. Both accounts got quite good followings. And yeah, your podcast.
big Primark collection.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
This is
That's
very
what I said. This
important.
is the Primark. Apart from me, like if I was Golden State, that'd be it. We could call it the proper Primark one. But yeah, you guys have done. I think you've done really well for the community, and I think that's the point of it. Is why me and Glenn done it as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why we get on. Even though we've just met you today and met you pre-cool, like very similar sort of core values for the NBA community and wanting to grow the sport in the UK. So yeah, we appreciate you giving up your time to come on this, because yeah, we're still learning in early days.
Just obviously going back to this whole community sort of thing. Like obviously our intention was the Bulls or UK Bulls community. And obviously like Jimmy and Geordie, who ran the Bulls Nation UK Twitter account, they're both in the Discord, and the idea was to get all the sort of the creators, if that's what you want to call us, together and grow the community. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks, it's come out. Obviously, Jimmy's put his thing out saying that he hasn't got the time to give the account its full thing, so he's taking a step back, but he will be back. And then Geordie's come out and said at the end of the season that he's done as well, and it's like it's quite gutting, to be fair, for the community, because I think, like you say, the more people doing it, the more eyes there are on UK NBA fans, not just UK Bulls fans,
Yeah.
and it kind of helps be taken a little bit more serious, maybe by the American market. The fact that the more people that do show that bit of passion, that do show that bit of dedication, we start getting taken serious, maybe.
I think you guys are there though. If you've had guests on from the Bulls organization, I think
I basically, I'd bite your hand off to be, the level that you guys do. That's sort of, though, seeing you guys do what you do sort of like motivates me and us to keep going, because Sam will know some weeks I'm like, is it even worth doing anymore? You have to put a
15
lot of effort
downloads. It's
into
like,
it.
yeah, great.
Yeah,
And
I'll be honest, we've had the exact same conversations, even recently, because it is very time consuming, which is obviously why Jimmy and Geordie have took the step back. And I get it, but at the same time, I've had these doubts in my head time and time again over the last couple of years, and it helps having Neil there doing it with me. Whereas I think, obviously, if you're trying to do it by yourself, you don't have that person pulling you on, and So, but we've also, in trying to create the community, we're in different chats with loads of different people, and obviously they'll know who they are, the fantasy league chat that we're in, and that kind of keeps us motivated as well, because it's like, even when it's the off season, we're still all talking, and we're still, it doesn't revolve around basketball 9 times out of 10. It goes a little bit crazy, but
Sam, our invites must have been lost in the post.
You've only just jumped on the scene anyway, so I don't know what you're on about, Mr. Newbie in the NBA.
But no, like I say, we've been through it ourselves.
Yeah.
Maybe even as far as 2 weeks ago, we were kind of thinking, why are we doing it? And we kind of operate on an American time zone anyway, so it's we tend to struggle more with the UK market than the American market.
I don't
for
think
some
you
reason,
guys have a time zone. I think you two have your own time zone.
It's,
What is
it's
time?
just a matter of stealing sleep when you can. You know, everything
Time
else
is obviously a man-made construct. So
Yeah,
exactly.
so I've spent the last 20 years in jobs where I've had very little sleep. So
Yeah,
it
same. I've been
just,
in aviation for years, so I'm all over the place time wise.
well, I will say is, from our point of view, I think you should keep going for not just the Bulls UK community, but just UK fans in general. Because I do think the game is picking up over here. It's just a shame that football takes over this country and there's no money into I will say grassroots of basketball, but it's not grass. It's, I don't know, wood roots um of basketball, and it's we want to see the next generation sort of getting into it. I'll be trying to get my son into it. Sam's trying to get his kids into it. I'm sure all of us are trying to do that. So yeah, I'd say keep going.
Yeah, well, also just to say, step back a little bit on what you were saying about your early doors. When myself and Matt first started recording, we used a very, very different system to what we use now. It was an app that was designed by Tim Sinclair, who is the Chicago Bulls PA announcer, and that kind of gave us a link to him as well at one point. But when we first started, Matt sitting in his truck, I was sitting in my car out in the rain in my front drive, and we were recording through our phones, and that's how we started. So to have come, I suppose, to the point where we're at now, for us, it feels like it's still got a long way to go. But I suppose maybe if we were looking back on ourselves from back then, we probably thought we wouldn't get to where we are now. So everything starts somewhere, and the same thing was said to us. When we had Big Dave Watson from CHGO on, he said when he first started, he was locking himself into a cupboard to record because it was where he was getting the best signal and the best reception. So everybody starts somewhere, and we're all in it together. We're all part of the same community in regards to NBA UK, and we're all here for each other. And I think the more we have of us involved in it, the better.
Yeah, I think me and Sam had a conversation at the start of the season that we at least need to give it a year, and have a bit of tea into it. And I think even now, if me and Sam look back to October when we started at the start of the season, like we've made improvements. They might be small stepping stones. The whole thing with X, like you say, Matt, it's not the greatest platform, but I think it's very good for engagement and algorithms, and I think you just have to ride the wave with it, and just try and ignore the bad from it and try and take the good from it. There's always going to be people trying to pick arguments and debates. I kind of think that, as long as you're thick-skinned and just don't get involved in that sort of nonsense or be sarcastic. I'm very sarcastic and dry, so it makes it a lot easier to it's always funny as well when it's an account that's got no profile picture and it's a load of numbers. Like you can't even take it seriously. So
or Bucks fans.
or Bucks fans.
No,
Yeah,
it's funniest guy on social. I'll give him his due. He is such a troll, and it's funny when he gets people. But yeah, he's nearly got me a few times.
They do bite.
He's winding me up.
They do bite. But yeah, so on a lighter note, well, sort of, let's get into some X and O, which is something we do on a regular basis. I've made it Chicago Bulls themed. I've only got 3 for now, which is good because obviously we have been chatting for quite some time now. Don't know what day it is. Number 1, Lonzo Ball, as we saw on the bench quite recently. He should be called Street Clothes, not AD. Will return next season, only to be hampered by injury again, thus potentially ending his career short.
I'll let Neil go first for that one.
Yeah. If he even gets that far to the point where he comes back, I I think unfortunately that there is a very distinct possibility that that is what we're gonna see. I mean, the latest thing that came out is he's now been moved up, that he's ready for advanced rehab. It got lost among the reads, and actually the information that came out was incorrect, that he was now ready for advanced basketball activities, which is not what was said. It's advanced rehab. So, I mean, that's still only rehabbing, right? He's only just been cleared as being able to sprint. And this is, what, 2.5 years on? I think it's still a long way off him being ready to step onto the floor. And even when he does, is he going to be any kind of a player again? Is he going to be anywhere close to what he was? And I'm sure he's going to be on quite a stringent minutes limitation for quite a while, if and when he does come back. So I would say that the chances of that happening are sadly quite realistic.
So
Yeah,
to clarify,
I
you're
mean-
an O on that.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah, I'll go the same.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm at a point where I don't actually want to see him come back. I'm done with all that side of it now. Just sick of the constant updates and the positivity around it all. You know, personal point of view, as long as he's able to play with his kids and walk upstairs and stuff like that, you know, great. But
Yeah.
you know, he's made his money. Just don't want to go through that for another year now. Of is he coming back? Is he coming back? And then when he comes back, how long is he back for? Sort of thing.
But you never know. 2 years out, Embiid, he worked on his jumper the whole time. Lonzo Ball might come back and be a 40% 3-point shooter because he's been.
And now he falls to the floor to prevent injury rather than
Yeah, that's how
last
Embiid's
time
been taught. That's legit. I've been told that.
blocking.
I don't.
Yeah.
To be honest, black chaps, number 2 had nothing to do with me, and I do not condone this.
Hey Sam, just wait there. I'm going to save that for last.
Oh,
That's the-
okay. There's one question I do not, and you'll know that I did not condone it. So,
Obviously,
Okay.
we've spoken a lot about how Bulls are a competitive team, and with the standings currently, Bulls will make it to the playoffs as the 8th seed through the play-in.
No, say X to that. I just
Is that your heart saying that, or your head saying that, or both?
head. I think even if we do make it to this sort of through the into the play-in, I just think the teams that are above us are just be too strong on the day for us.
Apart from the Sixers.
Okay, well, I'll go with my heart then, and I'll go O.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that with every chance, if we continue to play the way we've been playing, and if we can take it into the clutch, as soon as a game goes into the clutch, we've got a great chance of taking it.
He didn't say that. If he'd have said if it's a clutch game, then I'd have said, yeah, we're going to win it.
Yeah, but I also said I wasn't answering with my head. I was answering with my heart. And in my heart, I believe that this can happen.
If you look at the standings, if the season finished today, you'd have Atlanta at home.
Yeah.
And if you win that, obviously you'd be on the road to Miami or Indiana.
Miami, obviously.
Right. And I think we've got as good as a 50-50 chance against either of those teams.
I'd agree. I think Indiana will possibly be the 7th seed.
No, we took their best player, so
Huh?
we took Buddy Hield, their best player, mate. So
Okay.
and
then you'd have Miami in that final play-in. And I do agree with the 50-50, but that's obviously when Jimmy Butler decides to start playing basketball. So
yeah, but now he looks like Mickey Mouse. So I don't know.
Yes, he does look like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. See his latest haircut.
I have
Shocking.
seen his latest album. His hair, the whole media day thing. Do they really have to use that picture?
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose you could change it
Because I loaded up the app the other day, and that picture came up, and I was like, okay, for the first few weeks, funny, but do you have to use that photo or just use a stock photo? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know whether that's stubbornness on the part of the NBA
Maybe.
or laziness. But yeah, of course they could use a stock photo, but no, that's the picture that was taken on the day. That's the picture they use for the season. And
So
Jimmy knew that, and that's why he did it.
Yes, he did know that. So we're 50-50 on that. Neil, you're saying you're going through, and Matt, you're saying it's not happening.
Unless it's a clutch game.
This is okay.
Which
Well,
that's why we lost to Clippers on Saturday, because Vooch missed a little jumper about 5 minutes and 10 seconds left. And they kept it at a 7-point game. If it'd have hit it and it had gone to that 5-point game, making it a clutch game, we'd have won. So, yeah, Vooch was the reason we lost.
Well, on to the third and final X and O.
I'm out.
This is
the controversial one, is it?
Very.
Okay.
Last but not least, you will have seen in recent days that there is a new TikTok trend of hating on the 90s era of basketball. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
No, I haven't actually.
So there's an account that's putting out some highlights from the 90s and basically pointing out how trash that era was. But essentially they've cherry picked some awful games. Like there's some awful games and plays we see in today's game, hence shots in the fall and whatnot. So it got me thinking. LeBron would still be LeBron in MJ's era, but MJ wouldn't be MJ in LeBron's era.
Okay. I've a couple of points to make on that, because I've actually heard something similar to this before, right?
Can I just disclaim these X and O's? It doesn't mean I believe in them. So I'm not saying that that's the case.
You can't try and climb out of the hole now. You've dug it. You're in it, right? At least stand by it. Come on, right?
Hey, then neither of them are Austin Reeves, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, so the first point I'll make, right? First of all, I'll tackle the LeBron in the 90s, right? A few points on it. Yeah, I think you could pluck LeBron out, put him into the 90s, and he'd do well, but he wouldn't be getting away with the no hand check rule, right? So he would be played a hell of a lot more physically, and we know that LeBron doesn't really like to be touched, right? Second of all, the flopping thing, that would just not be tolerated in the 90s whatsoever.
I have no idea what you're referring to.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. But I do think that he would do well to a degree. I don't know how he'd manage the physicality of the 90s, because it wasn't a very, very physical era compared to what we see today. Then to answer your question about MJ in today's era, Michael Jordan, if he was to play in today's, he would average 60 points a game. If Michael Jordan was able to play in an era where players cannot touch him, apart from the fact that he would be getting to the line for 20 to 30 points a game from the charity stripe, his game would just be indefensible, because he'd just be able to blow past everybody. If you watch the way he used to blow past 3, 4, even 5 players at a time, still be able to make the shot and then get to the stripe back in the 90s when he was being hammered, particularly by teams like the Sixers and the Pistons and the Knicks.
Yeah.
If you put him into today's era where he can't be touched, he would be literally untouchable. That's my take. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree. Like we always say about LeBron, you can't deny that he's the greatest of this era, not of all time. And I mean, obviously the big thing with LeBron is the longevity. And would he have had that longevity back in the 90s? Because he can't pay $1 million to have ice chambers or whatever it is in his house and look after his body. Obviously MJ didn't have that sort of thing, but it was the mental aspect with MJ. And if MJ could look after his body the way that
Mm-hmm.
LeBron can now, which obviously is a personal choice anyway, obviously with the drinking and stuff. But yeah, like you said, it'd just be untouchable in this era. And LeBron I don't think he'd have lasted past his rookie season in the 90s, because I just don't think he'd have dealt with the physicality of it.
I guess it comes as part and parcel with the evolution of the game,
Of course.
doesn't it, essentially?
And that's the thing with the argument of who's the greatest of all time, and that argument is always going to go on. I mean, at the moment, the debate is between MJ and
Will Chamberlain, yeah.
LeBron. But yeah, you could go back to Wilt, you could go back to Bill Russell, you can go back, all the way through the NBA and since the NBA's inception. And there's always going to be people who are of an era that are going to fight for their own era and the era that they loved. So it's a debate that's always going to keep going, and it'll always keep rolling. And to a certain degree, a lot of it is just personal perception as well.
See, there's one name that I think always gets passed over, and especially by this sort of crossover era, is Kobe Bryant. I'd actually take him over LeBron any day. And I think he was as close to MJ as anybody was going to be.
Yeah. There's always that crossover player, though, isn't there? Like Dr. J was the same for me. Like he was the first person to do that dunk from the free throw line. That remembers MJ's and stuff. Yeah. The ABA. Kobe got missed out as well. You could argue Shaquille with his dominance. Like you got Hakeem. There's players and they just had the wrong era because he had Magic, or you had Michael, or you had whoever. Like Charles Barkley's one of probably the greatest player to never win a ring because he was up against MJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And I put Patrick Ewing in that as well.
Yeah. Just the whole Space Jam cast. There's probably Larry Johnson in there.
apart from
Sean Bradley. Yeah, apart from Sean Bradley. Yeah,
May you rest in peace.
Yeah, I'm not a homer on that one. No.
I mean, I can't disagree with you boys. A lot of it does bear on what era you grow up in. I guess whoever your GOAT is, it will denote what age you are, I guess.
Yeah, or what influences you've had in your life. Like, for instance, my kids, they're growing up watching LeBron play, and yet they know Michael Jordan's the greatest ever. So,
Just educating your kids correctly. That's all it
is. This is exactly.
It's all a bit of a bias there, but
hey, my kids are named after Sixers players, but they know MJ's to go.
There you go.
When they buy his trainers, I say they're not like any other kid. I'm like, you're buying the greatest player of all time's trainers.
Oh yeah, I'm totally the same with my kids. When they have Jordans, and they know that they're Jordans because they're named after Michael Jordan. Whereas all their other friends don't even know who Michael Jordan is. They just think they're a shoe.
Yeah. There we go. Glenn, do you want to wrap it up? Because I know you love the ending because of our sort of mini beef with the guys that don't even know us.
There is no beef. They will probably not know us or ever listen to us, but it's just a fun way to end it. But firstly, guys, thanks for giving up your evening, your time to jump on with us. It is much appreciated. But yeah, if anyone got this far, please listen, like, share, and subscribe. And our X account, please engage with us. And what's our at, Sam?
With the English one, because
we are the only one podcast called With the English.
We are. And just to end on a nicer note, boys, everyone should know your Twitter handle because you're quite popular. But
yes, please. What's your Twitter handles, please?
X, sorry.
Yeah, available everywhere as C-Red UK.
Nice, thank you.